Morning, everybody. A very good morning today. Okay, welcome to all delegates and participants. So now we're going to have a very interesting section first before we go to the official section delivered by Dean's welcome address and the Right Rector for International Affairs of Thammasat University. So I would like to take this opportunity to bring you to close up with our expert. So we're gonna have a live chat. Okay, you have a very good opportunity. And I would like to introduce first our Professor Suski from the Hokkaido University. And then we're gonna have our two keynote speakers, Professor Andy and Professor William from the Thammasat University. So I would like to introduce Professor Suzuki from Hokkaido University. Professor Suzuki, good morning.
Good morning.
Yes, very good morning. Okay. Professor Suzuki, please introduce yourself very briefly because our program is very tight and restricted to the time constraint for every section. So I would like to take this opportunity to introduce you. Please introduce yourself and deliver a very short message to our audience. For example, what do you expect the benefits for our audience? Professor Suzuki, please.
Okay, good morning, everyone. My great honor to attend this meeting as a keynote speaker. Actually, we started this meeting 5 years ago, and this is the fifth meeting. And I'm very much happy that even under very tough people in Thammasat try to hold this meeting. Thank you very much, and let's enjoy this meeting. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. Next, I would like to introduce our keynote speaker, Professor Andy from Thammasat University. Professor Andy, are you connecting us, please?
Very briefly, I would also like to thank the sponsors of this meeting. I think it's very useful to be talking about One Health of a animal, if you would, born zoonotic pandemic. And I'm very appreciative to be a speaker and joining the other speakers who have very good reputations. I'm particularly grateful to the University of Hokkaido and their focus in terms of bringing in a One Health, for lack of better perspective, in looking at disease zoonosis, and it complements what Thammasat has really made front and center in terms of their program. So thank you for this opportunity to participate in, I think, this important forum.
Thank you very much, Professor Andy. I'm very happy to work closely with you. Next, I would like to introduce our keynote speaker, Professor William from Thammasat University. Are you connecting us, Professor William? Professor William, good morning.
อาจารย์ไม่ได้เปิดไมค์ค่ะ
Professor William, please check.
Oh, sorry about that. Yes, me again. Yes, I'd like to add my appreciation to Thammasat for organizing this under somewhat difficult and special circumstances, and I'm sure we'll have a productive session. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. Okay. Professor Wilson, what do you expect about the benefits of this program to our audience? What? You didn't hear me? You are seeing.
I'm sorry. I cannot hear you very well. Was that comment or question directed at me?
Okay. All right. Okay, I would like to ask you again, what do you expect about the benefits of our program to our audience today? What do you expect?
One of the special conditions will be met or work for one health problems from very different perspectives, and that's always it's characteristic of this field, and that this is a great opportunity to continue this type of interaction under these conditions.
Okay, thank you very much. So, okay, now we have a pretty enough time. I would like to introduce our invited speaker today. Okay, to get our participants closely familiar with our invited speaker from Hokkaido University and Rakino Gakuen. So I would like to check whether our invited speaker connected. Okay, I don't have name already. Ours, Professor Matsuno from Hokkaido University. Are you connecting us now?
Morning. Can you hear me?
Yes. Thank you very much. You are connecting us. I heard that you are joining our program. This is your first time, that is correct?
Sorry, I cannot hear you very well. Could you repeat?
Yes, I can hear you clearly. Okay. Professor Matsuno, please introduce yourself. Please introduce as a leader, a very short message to our audience. Professor Matsuno, please.
Okay, thank you very much for inviting me to talk this great opportunity. So I'm very happy to share my recent research in this symposium. Thank you so much.
So I would like to share with our invited speaker from Rakino. It's all right. Okay. So I think so our speaker now is raised. They all are connecting us now, and also I believe that there are numbers of participants joining us this morning. So to be honest, I'm Alisatu Miratan, and as a moderator, I'm very pleased to these extraordinary and the esteemed occasion. On behalf of the organizing committee at the Faculty of Public Health, Thammasat University, it's given me immense pleasure to cordially invite the Vice Rector of Thammasat University, Dean of Faculty of Public Health, Thammasat University, Professor Hiroshi Hida, Hokkaido University, distinguished keynote speaker, as we introduced earlier, and invite speaker and participants to join our program this morning, the 5th online One Health Seminar 2020 on emerging infectious diseases and environmental health. This 5th online seminar is hosted by the Faculty of Public Health, Thammasat University, and co-hosted by Hokkaido University and Rakino Gakuen University, Japan. Our tripartite missions are run successfully to accomplish the collaborative research and academic activities, as well as continuous seminars as a platform of building and the capacity of collaborative research of mutual interest and benefit. And of course, the knowledge exchange of our demonstrable, operational, and public-facing results. This would enable us to be competent coping with the challenge of the emerging emerged one health issue and accordingly we customized educational program. This mechanism revealed very pragmatic reputation of our gathered research program that contributes significantly to publish more scholarly work to the scientific community worldwide. And now I would like to take these opportunities to introduce the main goals of our program. So we will begin first with videos, and I believe that your witnesses to watch video presentation of our health lecture series milestone start from the first seminar until now, and please enjoy video watching experience of esteemed seminar academic activity amongst our 3 universities. Please enjoy video. you very much. Our organizing committees very helpful that all the participants and enjoy our programs and have a video watching experience of our esteemed seminar and as well as the academic activities among the university. Until now, of the program is the morning. The scientific program will start from the official session being delivered by a dean welcome address, and next the delivered by open remarks, Vice Director for International Affairs, and then we continue to have this section, very important section about the keynote speaker that I mentioned earlier. We have the 3 keynote speakers, including Professor Suski, Professor Andy, and Professor Nolan. And then we're going to start the first invited talk by our invited speaker, both from Hokkaido University, Rakuten University, as well as from our speaker, Thammasat University. And then we will gonna have the lunch break around 11 to the 12 a.m. And after the lunch break, we will start the afternoon section, start from the 12 a.m. We also include invited speakers from the Rakuten, Dr. Sasaki, Professor Jun, and Dr. Kanjana, and then we're going to have the afternoon break. After afternoon break section, we're going to start the afternoon section from 13 p.m. Start from the Professor Nakata, Professor Asakawa, and me, Alisa Kumida, and next Professor Makita, and the Dr. Yan from Vietnam, our student. And the last speaker is Dr. Ruchi Lada, and we're gonna close the close reinforcing remarks by our deans before the 16 p.m. Okay, one thing I would like to make clear about our speakers and the participants. So everybody connecting the Zoom meeting throughout the day, I would like to make sure whether our speaker can deliver the talk correctly and smoothly. And anyone, please mute your microphones first. And also, please open your video. I would like to see each other. And during the presentation, whether delivered by our keynote speaker or invited speaker, we're going to have a 15-minute presentation. During this 15-minute presentation, our technical staff will open the chat to allow anyone's participants from Thailand or elsewhere, whether in Rakuten or Hokkaido University, as well as the student that I heard from Professor Junoda. Today, many Rakuten students joined this program, and I hope that also the Hokkaido University student also join our program too. So to make everything smooth, I think we make these effective channels to allow any participant deposit their suggestion, question, or comment to each section. If in case that the presentation will be finished within the 15 minutes, we're gonna pick up any few questions, okay, to ask our speaker. And in case that the presentation run out, so we request our speaker to respond to any suggestion question specifically, okay, by selecting the chat whether the question come from later. Okay, so this morning it's time. We're gonna have the opposite section. So the next session is very special for delivering speech and message for every which of our audience. Upon this time occasion, may I invite Associate Professor Dr. Sasikorn, Dean of Faculty of Public Health, Thammasat University, to deliver welcome address. Professor Sasikorn, please.
Excellencies, Associate Professor Piti Prasad, Vice Rector for International Affairs, Thammasat University. Professor Yasuhiko Suzuki, Director of Research, Center for Zoonosis Control. Professor Jorge Guanata, Governor of University. Distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of the Faculty of Public Health, Thammasat University,
ไม่เป็นไรครับ
I am
ทางนู้น
honored
ผมเข้าใจ
to
แล้ว
express
แต่
our
เขาจะ
deep consolidation of
เขาจะเลือกคณะบดีใหญ่คณะ
working
ไหน
with
แล้วแต่
Infectious
เดี๋ยวเขาจะดูเป็นกิจกรรม
on
กันเย
emerging
อะ
infectious diseases and environmental health today. This is under our collaboration network among the universities, Hokkaido University, Latuno Rakuten University, and Thammasat University.
แคบ
Undoubtedly, this seminar marks the start of fruitful academic collaboration and cooperation among our universities. We sincerely appreciate all the distinguished delegates and all participants attending to this online seminar who are interested in doing multidisciplinary research, obtaining correctly emerged One Health issues from market sectors, including various universities, ministries, national and international organizations. Activities act on our shared and mutual interests with regard to our commitment to education and research on zoonosis and One Health are as follows. Firstly, the meetings on cooperating research and education, strengthening network and continuing lecture series on One Health. Secondly, the development of collaborative research projects between our three universities. And thirdly, human resource development by accepting our scientists, enrolling in PhD program, and our staff doing research at Hokkaido University. These are only the beginning. I do hope we closely build and strengthen more collaboration in various strands of global health between our university. This seminar helps us understand more about how to build interdisciplinary collaboration through One World, One Health. That requires our collaborative and cooperative efforts. Again, I am most grateful for sharing great visions and contribution to our success. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dean Sasikorn, Tekapakon. Okay, before we go to the next session, the organizing committee would like to see our participants. You will be asked to open the videos from your screen as possible. We would like to see each other live. And also, please mute your microphone, okay, to make these, the environment for the presentation smoothly and clearly. Next, I would like to proceed on delivering memorized speech. May I invite Associate Professor Dr. Piti Prasad, Vice Rector for International Affairs, Thammasat University, to deliver opening remarks. Professor Dr. Piti, please.
เดี๋ยวคุยว่าชวนคุยเรื่องนี้
Hello,
Professor Hiroshi Hida, Head of the Research Center for Zoonosis Control. Professor Yasuhiko Suzuki, Professor, Director, Research Center for Zoonosis Control. Associate Professor Masaru Usui, School of Veterinary Medicine, Rakuno Gakuen University. Professor Mayumi Ichisuka, Faculty of Veterinary Medicine, Hokkaido University. Professor Dr. Kohei Makita, Rakuno Gakuen University. Distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen, minasan konnichiwa. It gives me great pleasure to extend you our appreciation on behalf of Thammasat University and to say how grateful we are to Hokkaido University, Rakuno Gakuen University, and the Faculty of Public Health for hosting a 2020 online seminar, the fifth One Health lecture series on emerging infectious disease and environmental health here at Thammasat University. The tripartite agreement and partnership between the Research Center for Zoonosis Control, Hokkaido University, Rakuno Gakuen University, and the Faculty of Public Health, Thammasat University, provide a much-needed platform for global collaboration in the partnership in research and educational program for strengthening the public health and One Health workforce to meet the challenges of the 21st century. Our collaborations have started in 2016 in the form of the annual lecture series on One Health for 4 consecutive years. And today, our successful collaboration has brought about the 5th online seminar, which I strongly believe that it can effectively link to the development of collaborative research and educational programs focusing on operationalizing the One Health approach to global public health. I firmly believe this seminar can contribute significantly to sharing research knowledge and experiences in public health and One Health that shall broaden the perspective of our young researchers to be more motivated and more significantly producing high-impact research for the benefit of our global community. I can reassure you all that I will firmly support our collaboration with my full capacity, and I wish all of you very successful deliberation of our important task today. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Professor Dr. P.T., Vice Rector for International Affairs of Thammasat University. So now I would like to make clear whether we're gonna have the our participants from anywhere in Thailand or in Thailand. We have some technical problems a little bit, so we are fixing now about the electricity, but no worries about our program. We will continue our program because we're gonna have the very important section. So I would like to take these opportunities, okay, to bring you to the next important section that is very special for delivering a keynote lecture to the audience. So we will begin first with the keynote speaker, Professor Hiroshi, Professor Dr. Yasuhiko Suzuki, Director of the Research Center for Zoonosis Control, Hokkaido University, to deliver a keynote lecture on how to tackle infectious diseases by One Health approach.
Thank you very much for the introduction, Ajahn Adisak.
Yes.
Professor Sashton, Dean of the Public Health, Thammasat University, and Professor Kitty, Vice Rector of Thammasat University. It is my great honor to present the keynote lecture entitled How to Tackle Infectious Disease by One Health Approach. Actually, our center itself is approaching to the infectious disease by uh, one health. So today I want to introduce the activity of our center and to show you our future direction. Next slide, please. Could you go to the next slide? This is one slide showing the emerging infectious diseases. You can find so many kinds from the Ebola virus disease, African, the chikungunya fever, dengue virus disease, but you can find in the center more than 30 million deaths in the world. This was caused by 1918 pandemic H1N1 Spanish flu. And now you are experiencing the COVID-19 pandemic all over the world. 72 million cases and 1.6 million deaths as of December 13. This is very, very big impact. And in addition to this, maybe many of you know, this is re-emerging infectious disease, tuberculosis, causing nearly the same number of COVID-19 deaths, 1.57 million deaths every year. And AMR, antimicrobial resistance bacteria infection, now they're causing the deaths of 0.7 million every year, but some prediction is mentioning that 10 million deaths per year without any countermeasure at the 2050. So you can see many of the emerging and the emerging infectious disease are zoonoses. So to control the infectious disease is nearly equal to control the zoonosis. Next slide, please. Okay, this slide is showing the before our center. Veterinary medicine is covered by Ministry of Agriculture, Forestry and Fishery in Japan. And the medicine is covered by Ministry of Health, Labor and Welfare in Japan. But no ministry covered the zoonosis. Hokkaido University proposed to Ministry of Education, Culture, Sports, Science and Technology to support the activity of zoonosis control. And next slide, please. In 2005, Hokkaido University established Research Center for Zoonosis Control. This is our center. Next slide, please. Our center is consisted of 7 divisions, 3 units, and one overseas laboratory, a so-called Hokudai Center for Zoonosis Control in Zambia. Next slide, please. So today's talk is how to control infectious disease. And the infectious disease is nearly equal zoonosis. But zoonosis cannot be eliminated because the pathogens are perpetuating in the wildlife or animals. So for the control of zoonosis, it is very important to do some measures. To do some measures, one important thing is to identify the natural host and the elucidation of the route of transmission. And the second, to clarify the molecular basis of pathogenesis. And getting such kind of the knowledge, we can develop the measures for diagnosis, prevention, and also therapeutics. And we think preemptive measures through these activities is the good approach, good One Health approach to control infectious disease. Next slide, please. For that, in our center, our center is now collaborating with 32 countries and 3 international organizations, WHO, FAO, and OIE. This map shows our collaborative activity on the diseases worldwide. Next slide, please. And in 2010, we first held the WHO, FAO, and OIE meeting. And after that, in 2011, November, we were designated as WHO Collaborating Center for Zoonosis Control. You can find the picture. Professor Hiroshi Ikeda, the head of our center, was awarded the WHO Collaborating Center for Zoonosis Control from the director of WHO Western Pacific Regional Office. This is a picture of the bottom picture. Next slide, please. So, as I mentioned, that to introduce our center is to introduce how we can control, we can tackle against the infectious disease. As I already told you that we have the 7 divisions, 3 units, and 1 overseas laboratory. Next slide, please. Firstly, I'd like to briefly introduce the Division of Global Epidemiology. This is only a very small part of the activity. One is the surveillance of avian influenza in wild aquatic birds. And you can find in this slide, the professors are now going to many countries, including Mongolia and Zambia, and to do the surveillance of highly pathogenic avian influenza, and then try to find that highly pathogenic one. And then this division, professors found many influenza virus from the aquatic birds feces and reported to the international journals. Next slide, please. Same divisions, they are now studying the ecology of filoviruses. Filovirus is a causative agent of Ebola virus disease, and looking at the filovirus activity or some action, and to develop the pan-filovirus detection tools, and also the looking at the filovirus infection in wild animals, and to characterize the viruses. Next slide, please. Next slide. From next slide, I'd like to introduce a very small part of the activity of division of, sorry. One of the activity is the epidemiological research of arboviruses. So professors are going to, for example, Zambia and Indonesia and other countries to catch the mosquitoes, and then getting the genomes and to analyze the pathogens. Especially, they are using next generation sequencers and to find out the new viruses. Next slide, please. And professors in that division also focusing on the rabies. And one of the big achievement is developing the real-time lamp methods. You can find at the left panel. And also they analyze phylogenetically the rabies virus isolates from Zambia and Zimbabwe to show the transmission. Next slide, please. And this is a division of bioresources activities. And actually, you can find myself in the picture in Myanmar and Egypt. In our division, we developed the very low-cost tuberculosis diagnosis and also very low-cost genotype methodology. And then we are spreading such kind of method in many countries by holding the training course, by holding the lectures. Next slide, please. In addition to such kind of activity, we are doing the surveillance of mycobacteriosis in human and animals. And you can find Nepal, Bangladesh, Japan, of course, the Philippines, Thailand, Zambia, and South Africa. And we found many infected animals and of course human. And we identified Mycobacterium tuberculosis complex species are spreading deer, cattle, monkey, and also the rhino in Nepal. And that is very big challenge for the nature conservation. Next slide, please. Collaborative and education. In this division, the professors are focusing on the parasitic disease, protozoan disease. And one of the big important focus of the professors are human African trypanosomiasis. And you can find the insect. Okay, that this insect This is tsetse fly. And the tsetse fly is a vector of the trypanosome between animals and human. And the professors are going to the some countries, sub-Sahara African countries, and to catch the tsetse fly and to take blood from the animals and the humans to survey how the trypanosome transmitting between human and animals through the tsetse fly. And then they developed a rapid diagnostic method using the isothermal amplification technology. And also they are doing the genome-based strain comparison. Actually, the method they developed is now in use in African countries. The picture at the right bottom is the actual picture of the usage of the LAMP method in Zambia. And left bottom, you can find very small machine. This is this is the machine only need for the diagnosis. Left bottom, the very small machine. Next slide, please. And also the professors in that division is now analyzing the protozoan pathogens. This is one example. This is tick-borne protozoan pathogen Theileria. And Theileria, they have two kind. There are two kind of Theileria species, which cause the one cause the very pathogenic some kind of the leukemia, and they did the genome comparison and they identified a very important gene to cause lymphocyte transformations. Next slide, please. Bioinformatics division. And this division, actually the dry analysis, their specialty is dry analysis. And this is one example. They collected many data from the database, and then they analyzed, and they found some stream of the, how can I say, amino acid substitutions from 1968 to the maybe current, and they, by the analysis, they find out the stream of the mutation or stream of the amino acid substitution in influenza virus. And now they can predict the amino acid substitution in the next year or next years. And this is a very important trial to develop the vaccine in advance. Next slide, please. Same division, professors can use the supercomputer to predict the structures and to predict the binding of some, for example, chemicals, or for example, antibodies to the viral protein. And these are the two examples, the docking model of the one is staphylococcus with H5 HA of influenza A virus, that is left panel. on the right panel, oseltamivir, that is the anti-influenza A virus drug, and how to get the resistance by H5N1 avian influenza A virus. They analyzed by docking simulations using the supercomputers. Next slide, please. Division of infection and immunity. They are focusing on anthrax. And several years ago, in here, 2012, some outbreak of anthrax happened in Zambia. And at that time, many animals, including the elephant, hippos, and also the cattle, die of anthrax. And actually the professors in that division went to Zambia and did the surveillance in collaboration with the University of Zambia and the people from the Ministry of Health to go to the South Luangwa, Lower Zambezi, and Mongu to get the samples. And then finally, they analyzed several hundred samples of soil and animal tissue, and then finally identified how anthrax transmit. At this time, many human patients also found. So important thing is they clarified the route of transmission of anthrax in Zambia, and that is big approach to control the anthrax. The next slide, please. And also they are trying to develop the vaccine by using the computational analysis and also by producing the recombinant antigens. This is a cartoon to show how they develop the vaccines. And I hope this vaccine will be very effective for the anthrax control. Next slide, please. Risk analysis and management. This is actually done by Professor Isoda. Professor Isoda was the chair of this unit, but now he moved to the veterinary school in Hokkaido University. And now Dr. Matsuno is the head of this unit. Maybe after this session or later, Dr. Matsuno will show the current activity of his unit. Anyway, Professor Dr. Isoda did this kind of the thing based on the risk analysis. And by the risk analysis, to assess the risk, and then we can manage the risk, and then we can do the risk communication. So I introduced some wet studies and also dry studies. This is one of the very important dry study to establish the countermeasures for the infectious diseases. Next slide, please. And 7, 9, 10, I want to skip this today because of the time. And next, I'd like to introduce the overseas laboratory in Zambia. And the CZC and the School of Veterinary Medicine, University of Zambia, has a history from the 2007. And right panel, you can find a photo of the ceremony of the memorandum of understanding between Veterinary School of the University of Zambia and the Research Center for Zoonose Control. And you can find at the center Professor Kida and other professors in the same pictures. But the history between Hokkaido University and the University of Zambia started 1980s. Firstly, the former emperor of the Japan went to the Zambia when they were prince and princess. And then they met president of the Republic of Zambia, and they shook a hand to establish the veterinary school in the University of Zambia. That is a start. And from that days, the professors in Hokkaido University went to Zambia to teach the students. And now, all the professors in the University of Zambia School of Veterinary Medicine is the Zambians. This is so-called Zambianization by Professor Kida. Next slide, please. And this is the top photos, the veterinary school of veterinary medicine, School of Veterinary Medicine, the University of Zambia. And at the bottom, you can find the map of Zambia. Zambia is in the southern part of the African continents. Next slide, please. And actually what we are doing in Zambia is to do the surveillance of viruses in some insectivore bats. Next slide, please. And also you can find some animals on the tissues. And this is a part of the table, what we found from the samples obtained in Zambia. You can find so many, this is a virus example, so many viruses, and some are novel. And we are now trying to find out these viruses are pathogenic to animals or not. Actually, it is necessary to see the pathogenicity to human, but we cannot do some experiments. So the target of our analysis is animals. Next slide, please. And these are the, some example of the publications in collaboration with the School of Veterinary Medicine and the Ministry of Public Health in Zambia. So you can find very popular journals in our collaborative publications with Zambian people. Next slide, please. And then finally, the University of Zambia obtained the very big budgets from the World Bank. The title is African Center of Excellence for Infectious Disease of Human and Animals. This is the budget for strengthening of research on infectious diseases, and also master and PhD student training. This is the big fruits of our collaboration between School of Veterinary Medicine, the University of Zambia, and CZC. So, of course, our center, CZC, is a partner of this very big budget. Next slide, please. So I introduced activity of our center. That is actually the One Health approach for the infectious disease. And this is the publication list, not list, but the publication history of our center. And actually, until the last year, the faculty member is less than 20. But you can find the increasing number of publications. And now, 2019, the publication number is nearly 100. And you can find at the right panel, this is co-authored by foreign researchers. And the important thing is the international collaborative article ratio reached above 60%. And the most important thing is doing the research only in Japan is not good for the One Health approach to control infectious disease. And shaking a hand with the researchers in other countries, especially the African countries and Asian countries, and then doing the study for the pathogens. This is the important approach, One Health approach. Next slide, please. And this is an international publication matrix, and obtained by some literature, some analysis by the website. And then you can find the big circle, big green circle, CZC. This is the size of circle is the number of publications. And Japan, you can find the big circle. This is the number of collaboration inside Japan. And you can find the Zambia please go back. Please go back to the previous slide. Can you go back?
Professor Suzuki, please. Do you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, please continue your talk, please.
No, I want to ask you to go back to the previous slide.
Previous slide. Okay.
Okay.
Previous slide. Oh, this is the last slide.
Previous slide.
Oh, previous slide. Okay. This one.
This one. Kopu markup. Okay, so you can see in this slide, Zambia, our big collaborator, you can find a big circle and a very thick line between CZC and Zambia. Okay, so this matrix showing how the intimate collaborating between our center and other countries. You can find Thailand with a red circle. And actually we have collaborations with Thailand. And now we are collaborating with Thammasat University, like this lecture series. So I am very much sure this circle will getting bigger and bigger, and the line between CZC and Thailand will be thicker and thicker near future. Next slide, please. And now we are planning to make our center, research center for zoonosis control, to be International Institute for Zoonosis Control. And actually we got approval from the university, and now we are applying to the Ministry of Education in Japan. And the plan of us is to become International Institute for Zoonosis Control in April 2021. And our new institute consisted of 3 units: unit for zoonosis research, unit for international cooperation, and the unit of veterinary medicine. And the number of the faculty member will be double from now, including the 3 units. And I am very much sure our collaboration between our new institute and the Thammasat University will be much much better for the control of infectious disease. And I can say that go ahead, go forward with big collaboration between Thammasat University and our center. Maybe this is the last slide.
Last slide.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much, and open markup.
Thank you very much, Professor Suzuki. Okay, so now we would like to check whether, okay, in our live chat, to let you know whether any persons, participants from anywhere, okay, deposit any question, suggestion to you. Oh, yes, Professor Suzuki, you see in the live chat, there's something, maybe you talk very clear and excellent. Yes, thank you very much. So, on behalf of the organizing committees, I would like to have the question, very brief question. So, is it possible that our target audience today will know about your plans for a next posting in Hokkaido, whether Rakuten and Hokkaido University? Do you plan?
Yeah, thank you very much for your big question, because we are not sure about the COVID-19 situation in next year. But hopefully we can have the 6th meeting in Hokkaido next year. And I think if the Olympic game in 2021 will be held, maybe we can hold this lecture series in Hokkaido University maybe next summer. It depends on the decision for the Olympic game by Japanese government.
Oh, wow, very good news. Yeah, anyway, we got waiting for your excellent hosting in the next year. Okay. And thank you very much, Professor Suzuki from Hokkaido Universities to deliver us a great talk to our audience this morning. Thank you very much. Thank you. So, yes. And next session, to the living keynote lecture, may I invite Professor Dr. Andrew Lee Colvin, Public Health University, to deliver a keynote lecture on defying SARS-CoV-2 gravity in the lower Mekong region, a transdisciplinary One Health approach to pandemic preparedness planning. Professor Dr. Andrew, please.
This presentation was pre-recorded, and I think that will be put on to the screen by Kun Kit. I'm Corwin, and my presentation is Define COVID-19 Region, a transdisciplinary One Health approach to pandemic preparedness. And you all have seen the abstract, the evolution of pandemics. Pandemics are not part of any grand scheme of the universe. They are random events, even accidental. Pandemics generally reflect a breakdown in the natural barriers between non-human and human species. Opportunities lending themselves to the emergence of pandemic threats include hunting and gathering, wildlife trade, poorly managed wet market sanitary and hygienic practices, intensive animal breeding, and laboratory acquired. The table being presented refers to Wuhan coronavirus virus because it was put together in January of 2020. Was still being referred to as Wuhan coronavirus. And they're making Marburg, Ebola, Hendra, H5N1 bird flu, Nipah, SARS, H1N1, MERS. And then finally, we come down to what they are referring again as the Wuhan coronavirus in the title. COVID-19 shared similar attributes with the pandemic threats grouped in the previous slide. The same animals sourced origins. Many emerging infectious diseases can trace their origins to East Asia, including avian influenzas, H5N1 and H7N9, and SARS from China, and Nipah virus from Malaysia. An express capacity to evolve beyond animal-to-animal transmission and take on a human-to-human dynamic, again, characterizes all of these viruses presented in the previous slide. One Health, the what, why, and how. A multidisciplinary approach in preparing for and responding to EID threats, again, emerging infectious diseases. In recognizing that zoonosis, accounting for greater than 60% of infectious diseases, characterizes the host reservoir environmental vector relationship, and so demands coordination, investigative and response, and sharing resources and information between animal and human health sectors. The real challenge is making it work. How do we translate this concept into practice? One Health. One Health thought into pandemic perspective. COVID-19 has forced a realignment of pandemic preparedness planning and detection, control, mitigation measures. Realization that such a public health crisis requires a societal requires a societal solutions beyond what the animal or human health sectors can offer. Pandemic actions, detection, control, and mitigation. First, we have medical response that can involve antiviral drugs, vaccines, medical care, PPE, and of course, testing. Non-medical interventions, personal hygiene, travel reduction, distribution, energy power supply, telecommunications, water and sanitation, finance and banking. If you can't even collect money from the ATM machine, you're going to have difficulties purchasing things locally, and other considerations. And I'd like to, who is the WR for WIPRO, WHO in Manila, and this slide actually was adapted from a presentation that he gave. Potential impacts on non-health sectors. And this was developed in the context of pandemic flu, which was estimated to the world's population if it truly became pandemic. And the first consideration or impact, deaths, illness, care, and fear, and that translates into absenteeism. This results in decreased supply, reduced production, disrupted transportation, international trade of commodities, trans-company dependencies, decreased demand, retail trade, transportation, leisure travel, restaurants, and change in demand, military support for, I can't see that, okay, for logistics, etc. Mortuary and burial services, who's going to collect bodies? There are photos in April and May in Ecuador and other South American countries where the biggest challenge was collecting the deceased who were actually in the streets, and their numbers really created additional health hazards to the population. Refuse collection, water and sanitation, telecommunication, phone and internet, cleaning supplies, cash withdrawal, protection against insecurity, electricity, power supply, food distribution, emergency services. Again, the potential impacts on the non-health sector, on non-health sectors. Breakdown of services, economic and social disruption, lack of maintenance, disrupted supply chains, etc. The success of the Mekong region in stemming sustained SARS-CoV-2 human-to-human spread is depicted really in this slide. And you can look at countries like Laos, you can look at countries like Thailand, Vietnam, and Cambodia, which comprise a significant portion of the lower Mekong region. And the rates are per, and this is per 1 million, are significantly less than you find in other countries, both within the Western Pacific region and elsewhere. These are some graphic presentations putting together reflecting COVID-19 cumulative case counts and incidence rates, and this is per 1 million population in the lower Mekong region, January through October 2020. And the first month when incipient cases were being recognized, you can see just a few cases, and you can see 15, for instance, or just below 15 in Thailand. And here we are color-coded. Please remember these colors. And then from February to April, when things were really beginning to pick up, we did see evidence, in addition to imported cases, of community spread. And we particularly notable was the incidence rates in Thailand. And you can see to a much lesser extent in Vietnam, Cambodia and Laos, and even Myanmar, but that situation has changed. And then from May to July, we see some isolated clustering of cases in Cambodia and Vietnam. But those clusters were very, very quickly isolated and contained so that it did not translate into community spread beyond the initial cluster of cases recognized. And then lastly, and this is just for Laos, Cambodia, Vietnam, and Thailand, you can see negligible, very, very few cases from August to October, when the rest of the world was going crazy. Now, Myanmar was the exception. And here we can see almost 50,000 cases. And I should say from August through October 31st. This does not even reflect the previous month of November. Lessons learned from the Mekong. More than our share of pandemic threats over the last 2 decades. I apologize, I'm having difficulty seeing this talking, Andrew Corwin. Okay, so I can't read it. Championed a One Health agenda, not entirely, and I'll get to that. Practice pandemic preparedness through tabletop exercises and real-life simulations over and over, taking on a transdisciplinary flavor, meaning it involved not just the human health sector, but the animal health sector, the private sector, the services sector, the transportation sector, all those areas that need to be brought to the table to ensure a coordinated response to any pandemic threat, for that matter. Evidence, research-driven decision-making that included vaccine application associated with AH1 PDM. This is the 2009/10 influenza pandemic. Introduction of new vaccines and preparing for pandemics. In Lao PDR, they introduced seasonal influenza vaccination as a step in preparing for the potential of a flu pandemic. Organizational approaches to coordination and sharing between multi-sectors. Who brings the different ministries together? Who has that kind of political oomph to call a meeting, and people from the private sector as well as government are in attendance. Cross-border cooperation, and also adopting the WHO WIPRO Sero-led APSID, Asian Pacific Strategy for Emerging Disease Capacity Building Road Mapping process and preparing for looming pandemic threats. Pandemic preparedness investments, years in the making, triggered by bird flu H5N1, now contributing to regions' readiness in response to COVID-19. These measures included established transdisciplinary multi-sector engagement, including animal and human health, the military, private sector, public works, transportation, education, and border, internal and international controls. National coordinating entities that took immediate responsibility with clear command and control structures in place. Cooperation and coordination between ministries, and that directives could be enforced and acted upon. Activation of existing pandemic preparedness plans and planning processes for adoption and adaptation. And virological flu-driven surveillance networks already in place for recognizing and tracking hospitalized COVID-19 cases. Continuing on with these investments, building local diagnostic capabilities and networking of laboratories, government, private, and research-oriented. Regional, mostly ASEAN-led stockpiling initiatives, rationalizing and rationing access of critical yet costly supplies and materials like PPE, advancing field epidemiology capacity, for example, investigation of case clusters, including tracing and non-pharmaceutical containment measures through field epidemiology training initiatives, creating a culture of hospital-based infection control best practices, ongoing training, including One Health-oriented simulation exercises, taking on a multidisciplinary flavor, including cross-border cooperation. Adoption of emergency operations centers. These are centers that are constantly monitoring new cases and the general situation, including the access to testing, the cost of new testing, and developing risk communication capabilities and strategies and leaving nobody behind. Having risk communication approaches, for example, in a country like Laos that has over 70 different distinct linguistic groups, to reach these groups in the event of an emerging infectious disease threat, and much, much more for that matter. Continued challenges ahead. Understanding persistence, and this is specific to COVID-19, understanding persistence of antibody response and does not confer and does not necessarily confer immunological protection. Understanding threshold necessary in realizing herd immunity, determining how much testing is enough, balancing enforcement measures with economic realities like forced closures, changes in the virus reflecting antigenic drift and shift, impacting virulence and transmissibility. Access and affordability of pharmaceutical interventions, including vaccines. Most critical, access and affordability to vaccines. During the 2009-2010 influenza pandemic, countries that had no contracts in place with the pharmaceutical industry generally waited at least 10 months beyond what countries that had the resources and had been doing business with the pharmaceutical industry to get their vaccine. We were very, very lucky with the 2009 pandemic because it was not virulent, but it could have been. And by the time the vaccine arrived in this region, we could have been experiencing a third wave with many, many associated deaths. Again, if things had been different. Thank you.